All over the world, we find tunnels, passages, and underground cities. In Cappadocia, they reach 280 feet down into the earth. In Central Europe, thousands of passages were systematically sealed. Under Paris, 6 million dead rest in the dark. In Peru, shafts vanish into rock, their destination unknown. Officially, these are separate stories, independent construction projects by different peoples. But the question is there a higher purpose that connects all these underworlds, including the tunnels we haven't even found yet? In this video, we'll walk through the hard facts through real archaeological evidence. And in the end, one question remains: is all of this just coincidence or part of a larger plan? Under our feet, a second world exists. A world of tunnels, chambers, and shafts cut into rock, bricked up, expanded for thousands of years. From Turkey and Central Europe to France, Italy, England, and Peru, archaeologists, engineers, and chance explorers keep running into underground systems that force us to ask, who built them, when exactly, and why? This is not fantasy. This is about what we can verify, and about the thin line where hard evidence ends and speculation begins. Cappadocia, in the heart of modern Turkey, is made of soft volcanic tuff stone created by massive eruptions from volcanoes like Mount Erciyes. Wind and water carved this tuff into strange fairy chimneys and cliffs. People began hollowing out this soft rock in ancient times. The most spectacular result, the underground city of Derinkuyu. Derinkuyu reaches about 280 feet into the earth. At least 8 levels are excavated, and some archaeologists believe there may have been up to 18 usable stories, connected by steep, narrow corridors. These passages are intentionally tight, sometimes only 3 to 5 feet high and wide, so a small group could defend them against many attackers. What's firmly proven? Stables with feed troughs identified by floor depressions and animal traces, kitchens with fire pits and smoke vents, grain storage rooms, wine presses with runoff channels in the floor, small chapels with carved crosses and Christian symbols. Vertical shafts act as ventilation and, in some cases, as wells. Some of them run from the deepest levels almost to the surface, still providing fresh air 200 feet below ground. Typical for Cappadocia are the round stone doors, ton-heavy stone discs stored inside niches that could be rolled into place to block a passage. Many have a small hole in the center, for looking out or for thrusting weapons through. Pottery and construction details suggest that the first cavities were created in the early Iron Age, probably linked to the Phrygians in the 8th or 7th century BCE. Later expansion phases can clearly be dated to Byzantine times. Between the 4th and 10th centuries CE, Christian communities used these underground cities as shelters and defensive structures. During Persian and later Arab attacks, around 200 underground settlements are known in Cappadocia today. Some are connected by tunnels that run for miles. Popular authors claim these systems are 10 to 12,000 years old and tied to global disasters at the end of the Ice Age. So far, there is no solid archaeological evidence for that. What is certain, Cappadocia holds one of the most complex underground defense and refuge systems ever discovered. But Cappadocia is not the only place where people vanished underground. Hundreds of miles away, in the quiet hills of Central Europe, Austria, Bavaria, and Bohemia, we find a very different kind of underworld. Here we find a very different kind of underground structure, the so-called Erdstall, earth tunnels. These are extremely narrow passages, often only crawl spaces, typically 16 to 28 inches wide, and rarely higher than 5 feet. They lie beneath farmhouses, in forests, and near old churches or castle ruins. What's undisputed? There are several thousand of these tunnels across Bavaria, Austria, and the Czech Republic. They were clearly man-made, carved into bedrock or carefully built from stone. Many dead ends were intentionally backfilled and sealed with stone. Dating them is the problem, because the spaces are so tight, and were often cleaned out later. There's very little organic material, like wood or charcoal. That can be radiocarbon dated. Where finds do exist, for example in parts of Lower Austria and Germany, pottery and metal fragments point broadly to the High and Late Middle Ages, between the 10th and 13th centuries. Most official heritage offices interpret these tunnels as hiding places in dangerous times, secret storage spaces, possibly sites with ritual or symbolic meaning. Austrian researcher Heinrich Kusch goes much further. In his work, he describes these systems as artificial underworlds and gates to the underworld. He points to extremely precise construction, systematic fillings with thousands of tons of rock, and similarities to underworld myths in European folklore. Kusch suggests that at least some of these tunnels could be far older than the Middle Ages, possibly dating back to the Neolithic, and that they might be fragments of a once much larger, interconnected network. Mainstream archaeology is very skeptical. There are still no securely dated finds that prove such great age, or a Europe-wide prehistoric tunnel system. The hard facts stay the same. The tunnels exist. They are widespread. Their exact original purpose is still unclear. They are too elaborate to be a joke, too cramped to be normal living spaces, and too strategically hidden to be purely practical storage rooms. The earth tunnels of Central Europe feel like entrances, not destinations. If you want to see what a fully inhabited underworld looks like, you have to go west, to the city of Paris. France gives us one of the most dramatic looks into Europe's underworld, the catacombs beneath Paris. Beneath the city lies a huge layer of limestone, formed around 45 to 50 million years ago. Starting in the Middle Ages, Parisians quarried this stone directly under the growing city. From the 14th century onward, a maze of underground galleries developed. These quarries provided building material, but also caused a new danger. Streets and houses started collapsing into the hollow spaces below. In 1777, King Louis XVI created a special inspection authority to map and stabilize these underground cavities. At the same time, Paris faced another crisis: overflowing cemeteries. The central cemetery of Les Innocents had become a public health nightmare. Bodies were piled up, graves were reused, and the stench spread into nearby neighborhoods. The solution was radical: move millions of human remains into the abandoned quarries. Starting in 1786, nighttime processions carried bones into the depths below Paris. Today, it's estimated that the Paris catacombs hold the remains of more than 6 million people. Only a small section is open to tourists. The rest, hundreds of miles of tunnels, some flooded, some unstable, is officially off-limits. Archaeologists and forensic teams have examined bones and burial layers, identifying plague victims, evidence of mass graves, and changing burial practices over centuries. The function of this underworld is well documented. First, quarrying building stone, then serving as a giant ossuary to relieve city cemeteries, later used at times for hiding, smuggling, and secret gatherings. As always, legends followed: secret societies, occult rituals, forbidden catacomb parties. Very little of that is proven. But the mix of real death, real tunnels, and real darkness constantly feeds new stories. In Paris, the underworld became a solution to a very human problem: too many bodies, not enough space. Further south in Italy, the underground would serve a different purpose: not just to store the dead, but to keep the living supplied, protected, and connected. Italy is full of underground structures from many different eras. Beneath Naples lies Napoli Sotterranea, a city under the city. Greeks began quarrying tuff here in antiquity. The Romans expanded these cavities, creating cisterns and aqueducts. Over centuries, a vast system of tunnels, shafts, and basins developed, some 100 feet beneath the modern streets. In the 19th century, many of these spaces served as water reservoirs. During World War II, parts of the system were converted into air raid shelters for the people of Naples. Further north, in Etruscan territory, we find underground tombs, ritual chambers, and cut rock roads and channels that sometimes disappear into tunnels. The great Etruscan necropoleis of Cerveteri and Tarquinia show how deeply the idea of an underworld was built into their religion. Modern theories sometimes claim there was a single, secret network connecting cities and sanctuaries across Etruria. The evidence, however, suggests many local systems built and reused over centuries, serving practical roles like drainage and irrigation, alongside religious and funerary functions. From the ritual chambers of the Etruscans to the air raid shelters of Naples, the underground keeps returning whenever people feel threatened. On the cliffs and coasts of England, the same instinct appears again, this time in the service of smugglers, engineers, and generals. In England, the underground is often brutally practical. Along the south coast, especially in Kent and Sussex, we find smugglers' tunnels from the 18th and 19th centuries. They link beaches, cliff caves, warehouses, and pubs. Their purpose was simple: avoid customs officials and move illegal goods like alcohol and tobacco into the country unseen. In medieval cities such as Exeter and Norwich, narrow underground passages were built to access and maintain water pipes, crucial for supplying clean water. To crowded urban centers. In the 20th century, the underground took on a military role. The famous tunnels in the White Cliffs of Dover housed command centers, offices, and communications hubs during World War II. From here, the British military directed Operation Dynamo in 1940, the evacuation of Allied troops from Dunkirk. Again, most of these structures are well documented. Stories of ancient cult passages often turn out to be much younger engineering works. Whether it's alcohol on the English coast or soldiers at Dunkirk, the goal is always the same: move unseen, survive what's happening above. High in the Andes, the Inca and their ancestors built their own secret spaces in the rock, not just to hide, but to guard something sacred. On the other side of the world, in the Peruvian Andes, the trail leads to the Inca. Around Cusco, the former Inca capital, lie rock formations and fortifications, such as Sacsayhuaman. Spanish chroniclers in the 16th century reported underground passages, connecting the Temple of the Sun, Coricancha, to other sacred sites. Some of these passages and chambers have been confirmed archaeologically: man-made corridors and rooms cut into the rock, partially collapsed or intentionally sealed. Modern surveys using ground-penetrating radar have detected additional cavities under parts of Cusco. What's solid? The Inca used caves and tunnels for rituals, burials, and possibly as secret links between important locations. Some entrances were sealed. During the colonial period, popular legends talk about enormous tunnel networks stretching hundreds of miles between distant Andean cities. So far, no continuous systems of that scale have been documented. Once again, a small core of real underground structures is surrounded by a wide ring of myth. Turkey, Central Europe, France, Italy, England, Peru. 6 regions, 6 very different underworlds, different builders, different times, different purposes. And yet, when you step back, the pattern is hard to ignore. Putting Turkey, Central Europe, France, Italy, England, and Peru side by side, one thing becomes clear. We're not looking at a single global tunnel project. The dates stretch from the Iron Age through the Middle Ages into the early modern period, and all the way to World War II. The purposes include defense and refuge, protection from invaders and air raids, water supply and drainage, smuggling and illegal trade, burial and religious ritual, storage and mining. What truly connects these places is not a shared engineering plan, but a shared human instinct. Whenever the surface becomes dangerous, crowded, or hard to control, people move downward, into rock, into the dark, into a second, artificial world, where they can set their own rules. Researchers like Heinrich Kusch see in this global pattern possible hints of much older knowledge, maybe even the faded traces of a forgotten civilization. Mainstream science is more cautious. It accepts the local facts. It sees repeating motives, protection, control, belief, but it has not yet found hard proof for a single unified ancient network. The underworld, it seems, is not one big connected system, but it is a recurring answer to the same fears. All over the planet, throughout history, humans made the same choice. When the world above felt unsafe, they carved out a new one. Below, and somewhere down there, between documented history and the shadows of speculation, there are still tunnels, passages, and chambers waiting to be found, and questions we still don't know how to answer.